I am an African.
Hello, guys. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is Africa for Dummies once again, and we're here with our special season on doing business in Africa. As usual, of course, it's me, your host, Zenge, but what is not usual is Nathan. My co-host, as you know, is not here today because of various errands he has to do. Very busy guy these days. You'll be quite excited to listen to our guest today, a very special guest. He started a construction firm at age 23 after getting a degree in civil engineering. This is Yebo Ngulube, who owns Urban Space Construction in Zambia. And he's here to just tell us about the trials and tribulations of starting such a firm and such a feat at such a young age. And so Yebo, just tell us who you are and what should people know about you?
Thank you, Zenge, for the introduction. You've introduced me. So my name is Yebo Ngulube, and I came up I came together with some friends, and we decided to open a construction company because we had struggles with looking for employment, as many youth in Africa are having that struggle of unemployment. So we came up with the idea of trying to be self-sufficient and open a construction company called Urban Space Construction. And that's how we're here. We've just started out. We actually registered this year and we're still getting our registration papers, but we've won a few projects here and there and just trying to get our foothold in the construction industry here in Zambia.
That's very, very, very impressive. And so you started off doing a degree in civil engineering, right? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. So why did you choose to get into this construction industry as a whole? Like why construction? Why would you're young. You started a company when you're 23. You're young.
yes.
Why should someone want to do construction rather than go on TikTok, for example? There's a bunch of people who just think, okay, why do you wanna get involved in that? Just like
Yeah.
agriculture, some people do look down on the very basic like crude work when it comes to construction. So why should someone really care about construction, and why did you care?
Okay. I was mostly inspired by my dad, so he would take me to sites. I would do some site visits. I would work on site during summer holidays, like during school and university. And there was just a fascination. We just had this discussion before. You're shocked at how Lusaka has quickly changed. So there's that transition with cities
Yeah.
and improving lives. Yeah. So that's what mainly inspired me to get into construction. And it also tied in with my natural abilities. Like I was good in math. And
But anyway,
no, you know that age old saying, because in Africa sometimes if you're good in math, you become an engineer. If you're good in biology, you become a doctor. So
yeah. The African parents' dream, Doctor,
yes,
engineer, lawyer. That's
yeah. So we had limited options, but like you all know, so that's what led me to get into construction mainly. But it's also a very lucrative business, and it's very easy to be self-sufficient in construction. Like, for example, if you study economics or other courses, it's very difficult to open your own firm without the relevant experience. But with construction, like we did with little experience and little exposure, you can open and build from there.
So it's a good place to have a startup, basically.
Yes, it's a very good place to have a startup, and it's very lucrative. But of course, the risk is very high if not done in the best way possible, and you risk actually losing out. Like I would admit this to myself, that I wish I could get more exposure, more experience on larger projects. But it hasn't been possible, and it's been very difficult to find companies that would take young engineers.
That's actually perfect. Yeah. Sorry, that's actually a perfect segue to where we're going. What is the first thing young people need to know about starting their own business? So I think that's what you're just about to say in terms of being young and starting up your own business? And in terms of being an entrepreneur, what have
Yes.
what are the basics that maybe some people wouldn't say, that young people often find out through experience and then end up falling on their back? What would you say is the first thing young people need to know?
The first thing that I would say young people need to know about starting a business is just to start. Like, taking that first step is the most important part. Like, it's a scary journey, and it's not an easy one. And you have to set your mind, like, for the first year and second year, there'll be no profits. It's very possible, even up to the third year. But you just need to try and build the clientele. So I'd say the most important thing is to just start. And the
Just stop
second
procrastinating and just start it.
yes, just stop procrastinating and just start. Because what other options do you have? You bear testament to, like, you see people with PhDs selling maize on the roadside. And that's just the reality of us young Africans. It's just the reality everywhere you go. And
so just
it's like,
that
well,
is your first piece of advice. Just get it going.
yes,
Doesn't have to be
just
perfect.
that, and yes, and learn along the way. And then the second piece of advice I'd give is continuous improvement. Like, you don't need the formal education route that our parents have laid down for us, because it's just not working in this day and age.
The formal
So,
education
like,
is not working.
no, I'd be confident enough to say, because if it was working, the graduates that we're producing in Africa, I mean, I don't know the statistics. I know you guys are better with statistics, but the graduates that are being produced in Africa are outweighing the demand for jobs. Or I can say the supply of the qualified people is more than the demand required. And economics of scale, when
so the market is
demand
just
is
not.
higher than supply.
Yeah, so the market is just not ready to absorb that many people with those qualifications.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
So
it's very saturated. So yeah.
yeah, so your first piece of advice is just get started. Just stop thinking about it.
Just get started.
Get started. And then the
Yes.
second piece of advice is don't be obsessed with formal
The
education and
qualifications.
getting the
Yes.
relevant pieces of some would call it legitimacy.
Yes. Yes.
And that's
Yes.
very
Yes.
true. Actually, you mentioned that the supply of graduates is not really meeting the demand when it comes to the different fields.
It's not really meeting it.
Yeah, and that's also true because the many African countries, Zambia included, the informal sector is the largest sector. So the white collar
Yeah.
jobs are very limited.
Yes.
You have basically created your own white collar or slash blue collar. I guess construction is somewhere in between white collar, blue collar. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. So now looking at the national picture, and we're going sort of into housing and these like very, basic things. Now when we look at, a few stats, as you said, we like stats. Afrohouseplans.com, which is a website that talks about construction and building, says basically that building a house in Zambia, in the urban area of Zambia, costs between $50,000 to $150,000. First of all, is that
Yes.
true? One. And then from your opinion, is it cheaper to buy a house or build a house in Zambia? First of all, just as a person, and then as a young person, we're going to go there to the next question. So just as a person, is it cheaper to buy a house rather than build one, or vice versa?
Okay, I'll tackle the first question. You said it's about 150,000?
50 to 150,000 to build a house.
50 to 150,000.
A basic house in the
which
urban part of Zambia.
So 50,000 would be that's about 1 million kwacha. Yes. Yeah. It's quite, the statistic is quite accurate, because houses range from low cost housing would set you back about 700,000 kwacha to 800,000 kwacha. And then the higher range maybe touches the $150,000. So the stat is quite accurate, and it's quite within
700,000 kwacha is $43,000 around there.
Yeah, $43,000. It's quite accurate. And with the rise in fuel costs, importation of steel, and also the cement going up, so the cost keeps going up. gradually. There's been a rise in the cost of construction of a house. And also there's also been a rise in the price of land actually. Yes,
And that's
especially in
also
the capital city.
that's also an interesting one, I guess, for our listeners, because not only in Zambia, but I understand in other parts of the continent, you have a situation where you have native land and then you have state land. Just give us an idea of
Yes.
what that is and how does that impact the cost of land, if you have anything to say about that.
Okay, so like the national land
Or
is
traditional land, rather.
obviously
Native traditional.
the traditional land. So the traditional land will obviously be cheaper, but it comes with having the right connections and like the chief in the area, being well connected to the chief in the area. And then there are these scams that have been going around of people having traditional land, but the state takes it over. So I think there was a case of where the state captured some houses because they were built on traditional land and there's no title deed, there's no legal backing. It's just passed down. And then it's caused a bit of problems in like the construction.
So if someone wants to build a house or if someone wants to buy a piece of land in a traditional area, would they have to get permission from the chief or from the state?
Yes, they would have to get permission from the chief. So that's what's been the tricky part about the aspect of traditional land, because it's not formally
it's not recognized by the state.
Yes, sometimes it's not recognized by the state. So you'd see like when structures want to be put up, a chief disagrees with the state. It's been happening a lot actually in Barotse land, I would say.
So when you get traditional land, it's not very secure unless you get state.
No, not at all. Not at all. Because it has no legal backing. Yes, but it will obviously be cheaper. And there are cases where people have built on traditional land and it's been captured by the state. So there are many reasons as to why, because maybe it might be a natural reserve that's being built on. Like the case of the what was that issue that happened just recently for the where the houses were built on the natural reserve, when I remember.
Sure.
So it's the issue of the chiefdoms or the chiefs not being aware of the consequences, maybe, of, let's say, building on the banks of the Zambezi River, and then the whole village is swept out. And the disaster management unit has to come in. So that's why the state has been trying to get more control. So there's still the sale of traditional land, but it wouldn't be as secure as a state-owned.
Okay, so land. Whoever is trying to get land traditionally would have to consider the lack of security that comes with the land then. So then, in your opinion then, now just back to the other half of the question, is it cheaper to buy a house or build a house in urban Zambia?
Okay, so that was the second point. Is it difficult? Is it better to buy a house or build a house? So there've been some statistics. I'm very bad with statistics. I apologize. I should have been better prepared for the interview. Maybe if we have another one.
No worries.
So we actually did an analysis with the company because we would like to go into property development on this question, because it's a good question for investors and both internationally and locally as well. So building a house is a good investment when it has a higher return. So for example, so for example, let's say Roma Park, or we can say Kingsland City, right?
Okay.
Before it was built.
These are, by the way, for our non-Zambian listeners, these are neighborhoods in Lusaka.
Yes. High cost
income
neighborhoods. High income neighborhoods, yes. Let's say you identify before that area is developed, let's say a plot of land, and then you buy that plot of land and you wait maybe for like a period of time before that neighborhood becomes a high income neighborhood, and then build your house on it. So that's when. So when I would
basically just buy the land and hedge for when the value will increase.
yes, the value increase because land never depreciates with time. It's always increasing. So unless you go through that investment route, then I would say you would make your money back because you would buy cheap and let's say in 5 years, 10 years time,
Yeah.
you sell it back at an expensive time. I would say that's the only time building is beneficial. Yes, I would say that's when building is beneficial.
So in other
But
times,
then,
then buying one is cheaper.
yes, I would say the buying one is cheaper because you can buy it, renovate it, and sell it for higher cost. Because with property, especially in Lusaka, you have instances where they say, oh, it's the swimming pool and the 5 bedroom, and then the cost increases. And you see these people buying houses and extending them to maybe an extra room, and the cost of the house increases. So I'd say in short-term investments, buying is more beneficial, but with long-term investment, building is more beneficial because unless you do the math, unless you get back a return of investment in a specific period. So there's this trend of people just building aimlessly and they put the house on rent, for example, and they think, oh, this thing will help me survive. But they don't look at their return on investment.
Of what
So
the
like,
cost of building the actual house was.
yes, of
Yeah.
what
So
the
what you're
cost
saying basically,
and
they should factor in.
maintenance cost.
Yeah, they should factor in whether they are recouping what they invested in constructing the house in the first place.
Yes, and with the effects of inflation and everything, like people don't actually sit down to calculate the return of investment. They'll just, let's say, invest in building the property, and just because it's a good or safe investment, let's just build the house when you never recover your money. Some people never recover their money actually. So it's about being smart and not just going out to build.
Yeah, there's a lot of strategy in it, it seems. So basically, what we can take away from that is short-term buying land is not necessarily beneficial. Buying land is not necessarily beneficial, but in the long term, buying and building is beneficial.
Yes.
But in the short term, buying a finished product is much better. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, especially for short-term investors that just want to come in, make their money, come out. I would say buying is beneficial because if you use the strategy, like I recently had some discussions with some people that run filling stations.
Yeah.
I actually didn't know that you can rent out land on a filling station. Like you can have a filling station on your land.
So you can rent out the land
to the filling. Yes, so it's about strategy. And I was actually shocked. Like if you can find the prime location that you say, okay, you can estimate where a filling station might be or where a filling station might
be. A
be
junction
needed.
Or something like that.
It actually gives you a higher return for lower input, and you can actually make your money back because it's not that easy to move out the filling station, for example. So there are all these strategies in place that people don't consider.
Yeah, I guess everyone always thinks about building a flat or building semi-detached houses or something like that. No one even just having the land and then speculating around it. Yeah, because even with all of the construction that's going on, I read somewhere that the eastern side of Lusaka in the future, I think this is a project destined for 2040. In which there is the decongestion project, which is done with partnership with Japan and then India as well, under the World Bank. The city of Lusaka is moving to the east from what used to be the central CBD, which was Cairo Road, which was the initial road of Lusaka. And so I guess in that sense, when you talk about land and speculation, those that have got land on those arteries, which will be the future central part of the city, have a lot to gain in the future if they follow your strategy, as you said.
Definitely.
Yeah. So now looking at home ownership in Zambia, for example, Zambia has a housing deficit of more than 1.5 million people, and this is as of 2021, I think. Somewhere there. But it's expected to increase to 3.3 million by 2030. Now, when we look at housing ownership, in countries like Nigeria, 25% of the people own their houses, and this is out of 200 million population. In Kenya, as of 2018, 15% owned their homes. In South Africa, that home ownership rate stood at 35%. Now, what exactly do you think is the problem in terms of home ownership And also in terms of the cost of housing, is housing just too expensive? Why are so few people owning homes? And also, is it right to want to own a home? Can people just have a renting culture? Because I know in Europe, renting is quite, quite a thing. I think more, Anglophone countries, the US, the UK are very much intent on home ownership. So we can just talk about home ownership, the whole concept. Should Africans even aspire for it? Should young people aspire for it? Why should you own a home? And two, why is there a housing deficit in general?
Okay, I'll start with the first question that you gave. Should Africans aspire to have home ownership? I would say yes and no. Yes, because unfortunately, we don't have too many investment options in Africa. Like if you see the government securities are not so secure. The stock market is basically non-existent in Zambia. And then if you want to compete internationally, you have a currency that's fluctuating all the time.
Yeah.
So we don't really have many options, and that's why people flock towards home ownership as the most secure option. So that's my yes side. But on the no side, I disagree with home ownership on the case of in Western societies, like maybe it is for you in the UK. You notice school leavers can own a home. This is because they can get the home on mortgage,
Chances for
and
that
if
are
you have a
very
good
slim, by
credit
the
score.
way, if you had to ask these days, because of the cost.
Really?
Because of the cost of.
Yes, because
I think average house
it's
200
actually worse than
pounds, thousand. Sorry,
yeah,
so it's increasing.
it's actually worse than these days. But maybe before the 2008 crash, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
So the 2008 crash was caused by homeowners, like
The
banks
subprime
giving out
mortgages.
mortgages.
Yeah,
Yes.
basically
And that
bad
bubble
mortgages.
burst. Yes, they're giving out bad mortgages to people with low credit scores, to people
Yeah.
with who could not pay back that mortgage.
Mm.
And most Africans, I would say, don't. I would say for Zambia, I can't speak for the whole Africa. I'd say for Zambia, most Zambians don't own businesses that are, let's say, multinational, or
Yeah.
they don't contribute very largely to the GDP. And that symbolizes that most Zambians have a low earning income or earning power.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I mean?
Yeah.
So most Zambians before retirement don't have the ability to buy a home, let's say, from nothing.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's why the mortgages are in place so that you can pay them over
So
time.
do you think Zambians having mortgages is a good thing? And do you think it makes housing more accessible, or do you think it's another like housing Zambia can end up in a housing bubble crash and maybe don't be so intent on home ownership?
I think Zambia is already having a housing crisis because you have homeowners that start building from scratch because we don't have many. Zambia is quite bare. If you go on the outskirts, if you go outside the capital city, it's quite empty, I can say. So you definitely don't have that option to buy already built structures.
Yeah.
And that's why you have to start building your own. But then the bubble is caused by people buying plots of land.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they have the title deed. They start building, they reach lintel level or roof level, and they've blown out all their cash. And they're reaching the age of retirement.
And the house is not finished.
And the house is not finished. So you're stuck with an unfinished house.
Yeah.
And that's the crisis.
You have a whole neighborhood that looks like a war zone because all of the houses.
Yes, and you coming from Lusaka, you can testify to that. You have you have whole neighborhoods looking like ghost cities.
But you're still not answering the question. Is it good or is it bad to aspire to own a home as a young African? What will happen when everyone has homes?
So,
or is this an impossible?
Not everyone can be a homeowner because you need the tenants as well. Okay. So there has to be that balance. That's why I'm advocating for thinking beyond home ownership. That's why I gave the example of the filling station renting.
Oh, I see. So other sources of sustenance then?
Yes, other sources of investing your real estate in.
Yeah.
The people that are working very smart, like people are opening resorts.
Yeah.
You just buy a bare piece of land. You don't develop it. Maybe you develop some structures for maybe guests
Yeah.
or international people to come through. And there's actually also, you can actually buy property. I was going through the Knight Frank website that has a list of properties for sale, especially
And
for
Knight Frank
foreigners.
is a property, is a real estate agency.
Yes, it's a real estate. I usually go through the Palm Godin website and the Knight Frank website. And I was shocked to find that you can buy land in the national park. You get
In a national park,
so
is that legal?
yeah,
Okay.
because I had a friend from France
That's
who
sounds
came.
like a whole new episode. Buying property in a
Yeah,
national
I
park.
just have to research a bit more. I had a friend from France who came over here, and he was actually looking towards buying that. So that's what led me to that. That's what gave me that curiosity. And you can
I
also
guess
buy
for
pieces of
lodges.
land.
Yeah.
Yes, especially for lodges
And
where you build.
there's also the rule about lodges being self-sustainable. You know, like if
Yeah.
the lodge, there should be no permanent structures. So you should be able to
Yes.
destroy the lodge once your time is up.
And then there are also these crazy innovations of building with containers, like recycling material.
Yeah.
Yes. So
Sustainable
I think if we think broader than just building houses or owning houses, it can be a better community. Like, it's not bad to rent your whole life, I can say. There's this notion or this taboo that, okay, it's a bad idea to rent your whole life. You need to own a home. But if your investments are in check, I think you can survive. Yes, because owning a home can actually be a liability on the balance sheet, on your personal balance sheet.
That is, I didn't expect that actually. That is very interesting. So those who want to own homes, stop. That is the message. I'm just joking. So your company also builds
in terms of challenges
non-residential properties.
you're facing uniquely as a young person, what actual challenges do you face and what experiences do you have?
Thanks for that question. The biggest challenge we have, especially as a startup and as a young person, is being underestimated. So you approach clients with a project, they'll love it, and they'll buy into the product, but when they discover the person behind the product, they sort of put the brakes on the whole sequence. Yes, because there's this taboo against young people doing certain things at certain stages. There's this tradition, like silent tradition in Zambia. I don't know about the rest of Africa, that young people are not supposed to do a certain thing at a certain time. They're supposed to pass through a certain stage. Or if you see these stories in the tabloids of young people making money or making big money, but are seen as, okay, I would say Satanists. Or
There'll be that.
yes, there'll be questions,
they've cut corners somewhere.
Yes, they become overnight celebrities, and the whole nation is focused on this person. When in Western cultures, you can be a billionaire at 11 years old, and no one will question you. Yeah. And it's actually encouraged. So that's one of the biggest challenges. That mentality actually goes through higher stages, like in corporate boards. That mentality is there. When you see a young person maybe upgraded to a CEO, and then the older people, because there's this notion of you have to respect the elders, even if you're better than them, you need to give them that respect. So that's been the biggest challenge as a young person, to access those type of clients and to get those type of projects. There's really a big limitation on when they discover who you are or the person behind the package. It's been a really big challenge, even if you show your competence and outperform your competitors.
So it's almost like just the fact that you're young, regardless of how good you are, regardless of how, like even if you have a track record, they'll still underestimate you.
Yes.
So what do you think? What do you think youths can do to overcome this fact that they're being underestimated, especially in the African context and culturally? The difference for elder people, and how do you navigate this? How do you because you can't, there's this deference that we're supposed to have for elder people,
and you're not supposed to say, shout back and say, okay, no, this is what I'm good at, and
Yes,
what I mean, and this is what I've done. It's do you think in my opinion, I think it stifles innovation when people
it
find
really
it
does.
difficult to accept that younger people can do things and they can do them well. And it's not even being ageist, but
Yeah.
what would you say in terms of like tips, in terms of strategies, skills? What do you think young people can do to overcome this perception that they are just trying to get rich quick, or they're cutting corners, or they're inexperienced?
Yeah. So I would say the first piece of advice I'd give young people to overcome that is to gain a skill that old people can do. So, for example, my edge in the construction industry, I'm hoping to learn building modeling information (BMI), which is not practiced in Zambia. So it's like
So like 3D
computer.
models?
Yes, it's a 3D model that's interactive. So when you show a client, you can show them with virtual reality. They can walk through their house.
Wow.
When you're seated in meetings, if let's say the architect changes a wall,
Like 360.
it updates the price. Yes, it updates the price in the whole system. So you don't have countless paper drawings being printed over and over again.
So
You just have one software.
digitize the industry.
Yes, when everyone agrees that yes, to digitalize the industry. I think that's the edge that the older generation, they just can't catch up with that. And that's where the world is heading. So that's definitely one thing I would like to do. And then the other piece of advice for young people is to package yourself well enough and not be the face of your company. So like I see young people putting their names in in the company.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. Kind of egotistic.
Yeah, it's actually a disadvantage. So you don't have to be the face of your company. You can actually put an older person to be the face, even though you're running underground, because the whole point is for you to lift off until you don't rely on that person.
So it's sort of just don't be seeking vanity because
yes,
you're
it's more
the best accountant and you want your face on the front.
It's more of you're more interested, like our company is more interested in value addition. We have a philosophy to add value to the country. So
value to the country.
We want to improve construction technologies. We want to solve the housing deficit by providing low-cost housing solutions. Eventually,
you're trying to be quite a disruptor, are you then?
Yes, we want to be a disruptor in the industry. We're not out for profits, although it would be good to make those profits. But
of course, yeah,
we're more.
Every company tries to pretend like they're not, but at the end of the day, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we're more out to be like the Steve Jobs of the construction industry. Just come in, bring crazy innovations.
Yeah.
Because if you notice, like when you drive through Lusaka, most of the houses actually have colonial designs, and people still carry these things. You get when we don't actually build for what's more efficient for our environment.
For the local environment.
So we want to come up, to the local environment. People just build the colonial design, the hipped roof. It's all the same thing. When we want to take like African inspired architecture, which was done even before colonialism, and just modernize it. Yes, because
in fact we did talk about that in our episode. For those who are interested, we did an episode on what is an African, and we did speak about the different perceptions of development. Is it a four-cornered house, skyscraper, or is it a thatched hut?
Yeah.
So I guess that's what you're saying. Building things according to your environment. And of course, there's a science that goes into African architecture. Obviously, much more in terms of architecture than we. From what I understand, there was a science in most of African architecture, and many people.
Yes, definitely.
I think grew up thinking that this is primordial, and all of it has a purpose.
Yes, when it has a very good purpose. Yeah. An example is like let's say the way the roof is built If you've ever been to the villages or the rural areas, when you sit in one of those huts, it's so cool in the winter.
It's natural.
It's so warm in the winter. Yes, and it's so cool in the summer. So just those innovations and those technologies, if we look through history, we can really adapt.
Yeah, even stuff in the Serengeti and Masai Mara, the Masai people, the houses they build, the dung that they have is meant to avoid mosquitoes. You know, when colonial explorers came, they died of malaria. But the local people didn't really die of malaria because they had their own forms of repellent within their housing.
Yes. What you just mentioned there is construction technology, like material technology.
Yeah.
So that's the innovation that we don't actually do because we don't actually think about that. Like,
you just look at it and say, "Oh no, this is dung. This is cow dung. This is disgusting." But there's a whole science
behind it.
Yeah.
What if we could treat our concrete to repel mosquitoes? That's a good one. I'll actually steal that idea.
There we go, guys. We have witnessed an innovation. So when you start buying mosquito resistant,
how much would that sell to a foreign investor? Just imagine, like a mosquito resistant.
Like there's dollar bills. There's dollar bills flying in his eyes now. Yeah. So anyway, just in terms of just final words for someone who is thinking of starting a company, be it in construction, be it somewhere else, like if they're just on the edge, they're still thinking about it, maybe they're afraid to start, what advice would you say?
Okay, my first advice is weigh your options. If you have opportunities to get through the employment rate, good luck. You're part of the 1%, 2% of Africans. It would be very difficult to go through the normal traditional route. So if you're thinking of starting a business, it could actually be the only option you have. So just put your whole heart into it and just start, whether it's tailoring, construction. The world is now, we're in a global community, and the internet has given us opportunities to expand beyond our wildest dreams. So we shouldn't always fixate on being in one place when we can expand beyond where we are. So best piece of advice I'd give is to just start and think bigger. Yeah.
Start and think bigger. That's a wonderful way to end it today. And so guys, you heard it from the man himself. He started a construction firm at age 23 called Urban Space Construction in Zambia. His ambitions are to be a disruptor. They've already got clients, right? They've already got a line of clients in less than a year. Yeah. So keep an eye on Yebo. If you are in Zambia, you want to build something, if you want to buy something as well, I guess. So this is someone to watch, and you have heard it from him. And we just want to say thank you for listening to us, of course, on our third episode of Doing Business in Africa, part of our General Africa for Dummies series. And be sure to leave us a 5-star rating, follow us on whatever platform you enjoy, and see you next time.